Welcome back, movie lovers. Story recaps here. Today, we're going to explore a fun-filled travel adventure rom-com in Italy starring Alison, Brie, and Aubrey Plaza. The movie is funny and thrilling at the same time. Hope you enjoy it too. The movie begins with Amber waking up to her alarm. She is getting ready for her day at work. Amber works as a manager at a restaurant Tuscan Grove in Bakersfield, California. She has been working there for 9 years and does not seem thrilled about it. At one point we even see her pretending to like the events, although deep inside she is screaming. We see Paul asks her to gather all the employees for some announcement. When everyone is gathered, we see Paul announcing that Amber is selected to be a part of an all-expense-paid trip to Tuscan Grove Institute in Italy to study cuisines overseas. Amber was over the moon on hearing the news. She thanks Paul and goes ahead to embark on this new journey. Next we see Amber and her friend Emily are having a great time scouting the villa in which she is going to stay. Emily hints towards that she might find love during her stay in Italy. Amber blushes on the thought but does not cast it out completely. Next we see her packing with the bells on. Next scene opens at Italy airport where she is seen approaching a van which is waiting to pick her up. Meet Craig. He is her supervisor at the institute. On getting in the van we see her meeting with Jen and Deb. Then we see Craig collecting everyone's passport, which kind of makes the whole thing a little shady. After a while we see them reaching the villa. They are blown to see it but get surprised when Craig drives past it as they were expecting to stay at the villa. Later we find them getting dropped off at a hotel which is just behind the villa where actually they were going to stay. That kind of disappoints Amber. On reaching her room, when she opened the curtains she found Craig filming the cleaning lady, which is really creepy. Craig sees her watching and waves at her. She waves back and the awkward event ends. Then we find all the managers who were selected for the program. We see Dana, Fran, and Susie. Craig is briefing them about their stay. He warns them about the strict curfew due to many dangers like wild boars and stuff. We see them having a fun ice-breaking session. Next we see Craig introducing them to Liz, who takes the group to the kitchen for their first food session, but gets surprised at their ineptitude. Later at night we see Amber organizing her closet when Deb walks in to borrow some of her clothes. Deb tells Amber about her racy plans for her stay. A call from Emily interrupts their conversation and she bids good night and leaves the room. Next morning we see Amber going for a run and she spots Kat, who is enjoying her morning smoke. Next we see Craig taking the group to the farmer's market at Pistoia. On reaching we find Amber taking pictures of Deb. In the meantime we see Craig again acting shady by recording the other girls from the villa. On returning to the villa, we see the group attending their second cooking session. Fran hijacks Liz's lesson by a cooking demonstration of his own to show off his skills, at which he is terribly failing, I might add. Anyway, next we see the whole drama being interrupted by the CEO of Tuscan Grove, Nick. He greets everyone and introduces them to Kat, who is his assistant. Nick picks up a greater interest towards Amber and says that she had an uncanny resemblance to Connie, of whom we are still unaware of. Nick wishes them a happy stay. They take a group photo and Nick takes his leave. Later we see Kat dropping in and inviting Amber for a smoke break. Amber agrees, and with every smoke they get to know each other a little better. Kat then invites her to a bar in the city, but somehow Deb overhears and jumps in to crash the plan. She not only invited herself, but also the rest of the group. Anyway, Craig puts an end to the whole thing by reminding them of their curfew. So instead they have fun at the bar in the hotel. We see a lot happening here. Jen and Susie are tipsy and having a fun time dancing. Liz is telling Deb about how frustrated she is about not being young anymore. Dana and Fran are talking about Lucca being the porn capital of Italy. Craig is still with his creepy vibes, and then we see Amber apologizing to Kat for how her plan went sideways. Later we see Kat receives a call. On asking, she says it a work call from Nick. They mutually agree on a better plan next time, and Kat leaves the scene. Later we see Dana, Fran, and Kat walking to their rooms. On their way, they find the lights of Nick's room still on, and they commend his dedication. But Amber seemed to have picked up a different hint from that scene. Anyway, the night ends, and next morning we see Amber waking up to Kat all surprised. Kat was there to sneak her out quietly. Amber gets ready quickly, and they leave. Later we see them arriving at Nick's yacht. Nick invites Amber and Kat leaves. Then we see Nick and Amber really enjoying each other's company. They sit for lunch and Nick gets a little personal by asking her about her love life. Amber was a little hesitant at the start, but later opens up about her messy breakup and why she chooses to stay single for a while. Nick empathizes her situation. He opens up about his sister's death and how that has impacted him. Here we get to know that Connie was his sister whom he loved dearly. Then Nick makes his move and opens up about his love life too. Amber is so mesmerized at everything that she does not pay any attention to his words and agrees to everything he asks. Then we see them making out in the middle of the sea and having a fun time. Later Kat arrives to pick Amber up and get her back before anyone notices. Before they left, Nick asks her to not tell about this meeting to anyone, which again intrigues curiosity among us about what really was going on. Anyway, stick till the end to find out. Next morning we see the group gathered in the cooking class. Suddenly Kat drops by to pull Amber out. She talks to Craig and everything was settled. Later we see Kat taking Amber to get a dress for a party which Nick invited her to. Amber can't believe that she is living a fairy tale love story at this moment. Night falls and we see Kat and Amber arriving at this elegant party. When Amber goes to the balcony for a smoke, we see that she is greeted by Nick. He introduces her to Ricky, who was hosting that party. Ricky compliments Amber on her beauty and how open-minded she was. That kind of confuses Amber. We see Ricky's wife Sophia entering the scene and greeting Nick in a very European way. She takes Amber to the ladies' room to get to know her better. Amidst her conversation, she commends Amber on her open-mindedness, which now raises a flag in her mind. She asks about it, but Sophia laughs it off very suspiciously, which makes us wonder what exactly Amber agreed to on the yacht with Nick. Then we see that Nick takes Amber to dance floor and having a great time. After a while, Ricky cuts in and asks to take over. Then Ricky's son asks to dance next. But that did not end well, because his wife gets jealous and starts bashing out on Amber. Amber gets scared. Kat jumps in for her rescue and gets her out of there. Kat takes her to a fancy restaurant which is the best in the world. Kat gives heads up to Amber to follow her lead while she talks to the chef. Kat uses Amber's lack of Italian language to get a quid pro quo with the chef. She then tells Amber that they have to leave before the chef arrives. Later they go to a club where they are having a fun time. Soon a conflict disrupts their night and they leave the place immediately. Later we see that Amber is fascinated by Kat and they end up making out in the alley. But soon Amber comes to her senses and does not want to ruin whatever she has with Nick. But Kat corrects her, saying that Nick does this to every girl and she was not special. Amber was heartbroken but calls it a night. Next morning she wakes up and joins the group in the kitchen. She was surprised to learn that Susie was sick and could not join the rest. That kind of felt dubious to her because she seemed perfect the last night. Later we see Amber catches Susie taking off with Kat in her car, apparently to Nick's yacht. She started believing what Kat said about Nick previously. Next day she learns that Susie was not feeling well. Meanwhile, Jen requests to leave on account of being sick too. That's just a real coincidence to happen. Later Dana tells Amber that he had some questions for her. They sneak outside, and he says that he is suspicious about this getaway, and based on everyone's abrupt sickness, he feels that they are all being poisoned. Amber decides to come clean with everything. She confesses that she was not sick and was out with Nick on a date. That surprises Dana. She carries on and tells about Susie too. On getting back, Dana sneaks out to look for clues in Craig's office and gets his hands on a bunch of photographs from previous trips. On taking them to Amber, she notices a pattern that every group consisted of only female managers. To which Dana comments that since he and Friend had unisex names, that's why they might have been chosen for the program. Their suspicion grows stronger when they see Nick taking Jen away too. She follows Nick to his yacht but is spotted by Nick. On inquiry, Nick had perfect justification for everything, but she is not convinced. She leaves eventually. On getting back, she and Dana decide to leave immediately. They went to Craig demanding their passports, but Craig turns down their request. That really makes them scared. Next day, we see Nick making an appearance to the group, where he is invited to a trust-building activity. Dana finds his moment and attacks Nick about the missing female managers. Nick turned around the entire line of questioning by bringing up his dead sister. The insane situation goes out of hand, and everyone leaves at one point. Later that evening, we find Amber and Dana try to find out what was happening, and were terrified to find guests tied up, gagged, and appearing with machine guns. Dana tries to create a distraction while Amber can go and alert the rest. She bangs at Fran's door and tells everything. Fran finds Amber paranoid, but on arriving at Jen's room they found her lifeless. That convinces Fran and he is scared too. Meanwhile, we hear Deb hunting for Amber. When Deb leaves, they make a run for their life and found Dana all covered in blood. Amber tells Fran that Deb might have killed him, but Dana says that it was the boars. No sooner did they learn the truth, they find themselves in front of a herd of wild boars. The boars go ballistic and they run for their life. They enter the villa for refuge, where they were dumbstruck to see that there was an orgy going on and Nick was present. However, they did not get much time to react as the boars rammed through that door and crashed their party. I mean literally. Anyway, at dawn we see everyone was injured except Amber. She bids goodbye to them. Suddenly Susie arrives and Amber finds out that she was away with some stranger. The trip comes to an end. Craig returns everyone's passport and reminds them of the NDA. Amber returns to Bakersfield back to her life. One day at work we see that Amber was surprised to see Nick at her restaurant. Nick did not like how things ended in Italy and wanted to make amends. He tells her that she had significant impact in his life and even invites her back to Italy to spend time with him. But Amber turns him down and asks him to leave. Nick was hoping that she might change her mind, but squirting out Alfredo on his shirt made her point quite clear. Nick left with a heavy heart and bearing the same pretense of happiness that Amber bore in the beginning of this movie. And there you have it. Amber's hilarious romantic getaway to Italy turned to a complete nightmare. The movie was fun, not your typical rom-com, but considering the raunchy duo of Aubrey and Alison, it could have been way through the roof. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more exciting movie recaps.